Hello Aqua friends, welcome to my channel. My name's Nicole and today we're going to do this very loose watercolor forest with lots of light shining through the trees. So let's get started. So first off here I did put some masking fluid splatters on my paper and I'm just sort of dabbled it around the page where I can see that the light was shining through in my reference photo. And you do want to wait for that masking fluid to dry completely before you start wetting your paper. So my masking fluid is very dry. I am starting to wet the paper, but I'm going to wet it in different ways. I really want to get the right side where the light rays are going to be shining through to be quite wet. And so I'm using my 1-inch brush for this part. The right hand side of the paper is where the light rays come in. So I'm making sure that's well saturated. I'm using a very simple palette, you guys. So this blue is Perusian blue and I want to keep it light because you want to have those darker rays coming in and you want a difference in the amount of pigment there. So I'm mixing my Perusian blue with my sap green, as you can see, and I'm going to get those darker rays in. That's going to represent where the light is not hitting. So the blue is the light, the green is going to be kind of like the backdrop of all the trees. Now towards the top of the page, that is where there's lots of light. I don't want to just cover up everything with the green, and I just want to loosely make some brush strokes to look like foliage. I also want some brush strokes to be a little darker here where the light is shining, so I'm darkening up my color for a more of a contrast here. And sometimes you just kind of have to wait and see how your paint's going to spread. You can help it spread by lifting your paper. If it's spreading too much, you can remove some of the paint like I'm doing. So I'm mixing a stronger color, bringing in some of my shadow green. This is a really lovely green. It's desaturated darker green. Now if you don't have shadow green, you could definitely use neutral tint or Payne's gray to darken up your color. Now where the light is, I'm just kind of dabbling a few strokes to represent foliage. And I'm trying to hold my paintbrush towards the top so it forces me to be loose. I tend to be a very tight painter. So I'm bringing in the burnt sienna. There are some warm tones in the reference photo and I did want to represent that. My blues and greens are all the cool areas, and there is a little bit of some warm areas on the path of this forest, and some of the foliage is also warm. So keeping things very loose, and I'm just dabbing on these little strokes here to represent, the ground covering and the foliage. So I'm just paying attention to what's happening on my paper. This is a great time to put in the color on the right hand side. This is called charging. When you're dropping in a different color into a wet area, it's going to spread and mingle with the green, and it's just a fantastic technique. Now, I also want to bring more light in, and I want to bleach out some of that paper on top of the masking fluid so that I have smaller areas that have light effects. So salt is a good choice. You could also sprinkle water onto the damp area, and that'll make some blooms and give you some neat texture. So continuing on with the left-hand side of my painting, I have to put in the tree that's there. So I'm just sprinkling more water on there because we need a little bit more moisture. I'm going to have hard and soft edges because I didn't completely cover all of it with water. But that's what I want. I'm trying to stay real loose and just kind of getting in some of those colors. So you could kind of keep an eye on your reference photo, and I'm just kind of following the lines of this tree. I'm treating it as like a big mass and not individual, branches and petals and stuff, because I'm trying to keep this really, really loose. It's also darker on that side because that's the side that the tree is in the shadow. So I am trying to build up my colors and bring some darker green blues on this side as well. Putting in some strokes here for the tree trunks and branches. Just extremely loosely. Same thing on that side, even though it's drying. I could add in some strokes to represent trees. I'm just loosely putting in some more pigment, cascading it down. Now I did want some brighter pops of that Perusian blue in here. So it is darker on this side. I'm trying to get some of the blue in here. This is a gorgeous blue, and trying to drop that in, charging up that other side with a different color. And you kind of want to connect your shapes. It's gonna look better. So that's why I brought that blue all the way down. Little dry brushing across the bottom there where the road is. And I am going to pick up my paper and let those colors mingle. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going to let it bleed the way it wants to. Magical things happen when you let the water flow with the colors. Adding a little bit more of that warmth. Now we're going to let that whole thing dry and make sure it's good and dry before you try to take off your masking fluid. So just taking that masking fluid off real quick here to see what it looks like. So here we have all these holes of white poking through, just like a real forest, how you would have these light effects through all the branches. Now to soften some of these hard edges, I'm using a magic eraser. I love, love, love magic erasers, and it gives it a very soft edges. As you can see, this just gorgeous hazy effect. I don't know how else to say it, but yeah, very hazy effect, and it just really draws the eye and it just makes it kind of look magical. I just love magic erasers, so that's what I'm doing. And I'm not going to do it to all of them. Some of them I want hard edges, some of them I want soft, you know, those like lost and found edges, as you say. And I'm just going to go about softening up whichever edges I think is going to improve the composition. So I'm using, if you've never used a magic eraser before, it is a damp magic eraser. So I'm softening the edges and then I'm further lifting with a piece of paper towel that I have in my other hand. And in between, you do want to like rinse out that little piece of magic eraser before you go into a new section. So once I'm happy with my edges, then I'm just going to add a couple of branches. Just a suggestion of branches and a few leaves. That's to kind of give the idea of what you're actually looking at, because it is pretty abstract, I guess you can say, and I do want people to know that, oh gosh, yeah, okay, I'm looking at a forest. At least I hope you guys think it looks like a forest. Or maybe I should change the name of the painting. I don't know. I hope you guys like it. So I switched over to my wedge brush. I love, love, love these brushes to make leaves and petals, and I just love them. So if you've watched any of my like flower videos, you'll see that I kind of like to use this brush a lot. So just, I don't want it really in your face. It's going to be very light. I'm using a medium consistency of paint, and I'm adding some leaves to the branches that I made. So you can really see how this kind of transforms it. Right now you're like, oh, that's a branch. Those are leaves. I'm looking at a forest. And that is as much as I want to do. I think it looks good at this point, and so taking off your tape, and ta-da! There's the final project. If you enjoyed this video, then check out my butterfly video that I did with a very similar technique for the background. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week.